Morning, everybody. It is August 26th, and today we're going to talk about a hot topic that, I feel like every time I look at YouTube, everybody's talking about sell-through rates, and some people say it doesn't matter, and other people say you got to have 100% sell-through rate, and some people say, if I feel like it's a constant debate. So I'm going to give you my opinion on it. Does not mean it's the correct opinion. It just is my personal opinion on it. And as you guys know, I've been tracking my numbers extensively lately because I've made some changes and my um, I've increased my listing goal and I've hired some help a little bit. So I've just been tracking everything just really, really, really carefully. And part of this is like, okay, I know I had more money when I did certain things differently. I know that I had more money when things move fast, my bank account goes up. Am I working harder sometimes? Yes. So immediately the thought goes to, well, if we just do higher profit items and we have that bigger margin, we're going to make more money and we're going to work less. That seems to be the most, that's the popular thing. However, at least in my category, and I would say also somewhat in clothing, which covers most of us in here, is that it doesn't move as fast, the higher end stuff. So like if I put up a lot of really high end Trifari, old Trifari, it's going to sit there a little while. So not only is my cash layout for the cost of goods going to be more, so that's something we really have to consider. I see a lot of people making this big mistake is that um, they're laying out a lot of money for inventory, that the profit margins to me in my business are not high enough to be laying out that kind of money. So let's say your sell-through rate, and I will always stick beside my opinion is that your sell-through rate should be close to 1% a day, unless you're like in antiques and collectibles. It should be 1% a day. So that means if I have 2,500 listings, I should have at least 25 sales on average a day. And I go by that method for myself, and I hold myself to those standards. And if you aren't selling 1% a day, you need to figure out why. So that is my definite official thought on that. If you're not, then I feel like your price is probably off or your stuff isn't good. That's my opinion. And this is all averages. We're all going to have bad days. We're all going to have stellar days, but on average. And also you need to figure out how many you're selling per day is in real life, not just what you think, because once in a while you sell 20. Like actually go and figure out the average of what you're selling per day. Everybody should know that. So a net profit per item, so beginners, I feel like, and I realize this seems very low and people are going to argue with me, but if you can clear, if you're just starting out, you're clearing, I think anywhere from $10 to $20, beginner to premium type of a reseller. So I know that lots of people are like, well, I want to clear $30. Well, me too. But you know what? It ain't going to happen all the time. It's just not. Do I have it happen? It does. On average, I'm clearing. So as of in the middle of August, my net profit per item is about 15 bucks. That's what I'm averaging. Not fantastic, not amazing, but I feel it's pretty middle of the road. And I've come to the conclusion that for the most part in my business, I'm okay that I'm middle of the road because, especially in jewelry, where do the bulk of the sales come from? The middle of the road items. In clothing, where do the bulk of the sales come from? Middle of the road items. Is it great to have those high-end ones? Absolutely. Are we going to sell a low-end one once in a while? Probably. I try not to, but it happens, right? Where I feel that people are getting in trouble is they call their bread and butter in the middle of the road stuff things that the selling price is the $10 or $15 difference, which is not the same thing as your net profit per item. So I feel like the death zone is when we pay 8 and we're getting 20 and we're going to list it for 20 or 25 and we're actually going to get probably 18, and then people say, well, there, I had a $10 spread. No, you didn't, because you haven't taken out your cost of goods and you haven't taken out your fees. So then I feel like that's the death zone, is or when we're paying 5 and we're listing it for 15. And everybody would say, well, that's a $10 spread. No, it's not. That is not a $10 spread because cost of goods and fees have to come out. So your spread just shrunk real quick. And to me, that's not where it's at. And I feel like if we have lots of 5 into 15s, that's where we're going to get in trouble. So 5 into 15 is really like I paid 5 and I listed it for 20 and I'm going to get 15. And then I got to take out my cost of goods and my fees. Killer, never going to work. And that is my official opinion. And I know that people can argue with it, and that's fine. In my opinion, that's never going to be a viable business. Not okay, unless you want to sell thousands and thousands of items, then you're right. You can do it. But you're going to be selling a lot and you're going to be moving a lot of envelopes and you're going to be doing a lot of extra work. So if you can net profit $10 an item to $20 an item, I feel like you're in a good space. I hover between 15 and 17 on average when I average it all out. And I'm okay with that. You know why? Because I'm selling lots of items. And then I get kickback saying, well, if you just sell better end jewelry, you wouldn't have to work as hard. People tell me that all the time. Why are you working so hard? You could just sell better jewelry and then you're going to get this good profit margin and you wouldn't have to work so hard. But they wouldn't move as fast either. And I feel like the key to eBay is velocity. Are there lots of people making lots of money selling 10 high-end items a day? Absolutely they are. I would run into a sourcing crunch. Do I come upon honey holes where I can do this? Yes. And you know what? They're bad for me. You know why they're bad for me? Because then I start lying to myself saying I could make a whole business of doing this when really I just hit a honey hole that doesn't happen that often. So, Catherine asked, are you going off of your number tracking versus eBay's average sale price number? So I don't use average. That ASP number is crap because it includes shipping and it doesn't take out my fees and it does. So when people go, well, my ASP is $35. I want to say, no, it's not. Yes, your average sale price minus shipping is that number, but you certainly haven't taken a lot of things into consideration. So when I'm doing this off of hard numbers that I'm pulling from sales reports and I'm pulling from the actual numbers that happened. Because I feel like so many people live and die off that ASP. You know what? I could start selling bigger things tomorrow and I could have a hell of an ASP, right? So jewelry ones don't get as inflated because our shipping isn't as high. So, but that's a good question. Nope, I'm tracking my own numbers and these are hard numbers. And there's months, previously that in reality, my net profit per item was hovering around $10 or $11. And that wasn't quite enough for how much work I was putting into it. And I had to bring it up, but I'm not lying to myself saying I'm going to get it to 30. I am not going to get it to 30 and be able to do the velocity I do, or even enough velocity to take away the amount of work I do. It doesn't pan out for me, just me. I'm sure there's people that have better sourcing than me that could make this work. But when I get a really good haul of stuff I'm listing for $50 all day, I start lying to myself and going, I could just do this. What am I doing? I'm not going to list that $30 stuff anymore. I'm listing $50 stuff. Why haven't I been doing this whole time? I can make this work into a viable business. I've been silly all this time. And you know what? That stuff sits there for a while. And then sometimes I end up having to really lower it and it hurts worse unless I paid, got lucky and paid $2 to $5 for it. Last times I paid $10 for that high end stuff, which is fine when it moves quick. When it's not moving quick, now my $10 has been hanging out there a long time, guys. And I could have turned that $10 over several times. But the key word is turnover. So that doesn't mean we list $25 and $30 items that we paid too much for. But if we paid $1 for it or $2 for it and it turns over quick and often, but see, that's the thing, quick and often. We can't just be putting $25 and $30 items in our store that sit, because that doesn't help either. But if you can turn it over, for example, let's say there are some better Sarah Coventry pieces that I know I can list for $29.99 and they will sell quick. Do I love selling Sarah Coventry? Not so much, but if I could pay $2 for it and flip it over at that, I'm absolutely going to keep doing that. I don't love it. It's not really what I love to list, but they sell quick, so I list them. And there's only a few of them, so you have to know what those few are, right? So our daily net also is very important. Very, very, very important. And people do not put enough emphasis, I feel like, in the reseller community on daily net. You know why I think they don't? I think a lot of them have no idea what it is. I think that's why they don't put the emphasis on it, or they wouldn't be able to explain it if they had to. So if you don't know what your daily net profit is every day, how the heck do we know if we have enough money to pay our bills every day? So I think we absolutely should know our net expense number every day. You know, how much is our net costs to run our business every single day, because we're not making a dollar profit till that number's met. And we got to include that cost of goods in there too, which means if we sell 10 a day and our, average cost of goods is 10, that's $100 we got to add on every day for our average cost of goods to have enough money to source appropriately, because that's our average cost of goods. That number does not lie if you're tracking it. And then we also got to have our average business costs averaged out per day. And until both those numbers are met with actual payouts, we make no money, right? So we got to know those numbers. And I feel like a lot of the community does not put enough emphasis on this, because if you don't know those, you don't know your average net daily profit, you have no idea if you're actually being able to cover yourself and your bills and make a money. But I think people don't like to talk about it, because when you put pen to paper, sometimes we aren't making any money. But we got to know those numbers. And I'm always going to be that person poking at you for those numbers. So the daily net does matter, because that's your paycheck every day. And if you ain't getting a paycheck every day, then you're just volunteering in your own business. And I am not really all about that. So then your monthly net profit is also important, because, if we're tracking daily, you already know you're okay on the month, or you're not okay on the month, right? So, but if I do daily, I don't really look at weekly, I guess, but daily and monthly, because it's really important to know these numbers. And so I feel like it's a combination of things. So I really try to, as much as I like to say, well, I'm only selling high-end jewelry, I'm not going to work as hard and make as much money. In my opinion, with the sell-through rates the way they are in my category, I got to have a lot of velocity. So 25, I aim for 25% of my sourcing and my sales, because can't have it for your sourcing and not have it correlate in the sales, is the higher end stuff. And when I say higher end, I'm talking about over $50 net profit per item, or $40 to $50 and plus. So I would like, and I do not meet this criteria all the time, so I just don't. I want 25% of my sourcing and 25% of my sales to be those better items. Now, the rest of my items, I really, really, really would like to say that I only list things that'll list for $30 and more. But it's not true. It happens that I list some lower end stuff. If I already get it in a lot and it's good and I know it'll sell, I list it. But I would really like to say, I think people get these things confused and they lie a little bit to themselves. A $30 list price is not the same as an average $30 sales price, right? Because we know we have to take offers. I list a lot of stuff for $29.99. Am I going to get $29.99 out of all those things? Absolutely not. Nope. I know I'm not. A lot of them are going to bring 25, 23, right? Not the same thing. So if I overpay for my inventory, and I paid $8 for that, because we hear a lot of people talk about 8 to 30, right? We buy it for 8, we can turn it to 30. That's a good business. In my opinion, it's not a good business for most people, because that $30 list price is going to end up being 20 or 25 or 23 for sales. We take out our fees and our $8, and the money's not great, guys. So if I can buy it for $1 or $2 or $3, maybe even 4 is pushing it. If we're going to actually get 24 or $25, then we're talking a little bit better stuff, right? So if we are going to be buying, we need to be buying consciously, like I always say. We need to be sourcing conscientiously and not just willy-nilly type sourcing. But I'd rather see you not overspend on things that, like, they may sell someday and they look really nice and I feel good about having them. We can really go cash dry doing that. So the things that are going to turn over quickly, the things that are going to keep turning over, they're going to add velocity to our store, they're going to put cash in our pocket, and they're going to keep cash flow going. Because I tried to do the whole, I don't list anything for less than like $40, $50 thing, and then I hang on to it, and I overpaid, and I about went broke. It just didn't work for me. Doesn't mean it doesn't work for some people. It didn't work for me. So we need to have that strong net profit. So I inputted a bunch of my numbers into ChatGPT and asked them to help me show in graphic ways how the net profit versus workload kind of goes, because I feel like that's the biggest pushback I get for that. And I put in these numbers, and I'll share my screen here. And these are very roundabout numbers. They are not, like real true, didn't, just for rounding. I wanted even numbers for easy math. So if we have low cost of goods and we're averaging about like $2 for cost of goods, and let's say it's a Monet brooch, and our average sale price, so that means like what we actually got an offer for, what we actually sold it for. Let's say it's $15, right? So our net after fees and shipping will round to about 10, right? So we net profited $8 on that. Not fantastic, right? Then we do still have business expenses. We have shipping, supplies, all that good stuff. So not an amazing flip. So if I sold 300 of those a month, I'd get $2,400 net profit, right? So I'm going to have good cash flow, fast turnover, and my risks are lower because I don't have a bunch of money out there. But my workload's going to be high, right? So I'm going to have more customer service. I'm going to have more listing. I'm going to have more shipping, all that stuff we don't like to do. So that is very true. The mid-range, let's say like a basic sterling necklace, I can get those usually for about $10, right? So I may get $50 if it's nice, maybe. But we're gonna say I did. We're gonna say I sold it for 50. Not asking 50, I sold it for 50. After fees and shipping, I may keep 35 or 40 of that, right? Probably closer to 35 if we're honest with ourselves. Net profit per item on that is $25. Well, that sure sounds better than 8, doesn't it? Right? If I sold 100 of those per month, there's my $2,500 net profit. So I have less work and I have a good mix of the margin and how much money I have, how much money I have out there in the universe. But you better be careful sourcing, and it probably isn't going to make me move as quickly. So you can end up with a cash flow issue, not badly, but we got to watch it. And when people start moving into those better things, all of a sudden their $10 cost of goods turns into 15, and sometimes I put out 20, and once in a while I'll put out 35. And then all of a sudden we're paying 50 to like make 100, but we're really just asking 100, and that doesn't pan out. It really doesn't. The whole 70 spending 75 and like getting 175 even doesn't really work out very good if you run the calculator, right? For as much money as we're outlaying out in the universe. Our high cost of goods would be like, I got a really fancy Juliana or something, or a Miriam Haskell set, and I paid $100 for it, and I'm going to get 300. Well, that sounds pretty good. I'm going to net like I think this is probably a little off. I may net about 225, 230. So my net profit is $140. Fantastic. Sounds like a better life, right? So I'd only have to sell 15 of those a month to get $2,100. That sounds much better. Huge profit, less labor, but boy, your money gets tied up in that inventory. It sells substantially slower. We have to research those things, which does take more time. And I don't know that I can find that many. So selling 15 sounds easy, but to sell 15, I may have to have how many of them in my store if I'm going to make a whole store of that, right? Because the sell-through rate's slow. So it's not like I can just go, I'm going to list 15, sell 15. Ain't going to work that way. You're going to have a lot more of those listed to get those 15 sales. And how much money is that going to cost you to lay out, right? So it kind of shows where it's like, okay, our workload is high to get that 2,400 to sell the 3 at that lower profit. Mid-range, our work isn't quite as bad, right? But in all honesty, guys, actually getting a $50 ASP as far as what it sells for, not including shipping, is hard. It's hard. It sounds easy, it's not, right? And then our low workload that sounds wonderful to all of us is that higher end stuff. But like I said, we can't just list the 15 and sell the 15. You're going to be sourcing maybe 100 of them a month to sell the 15. And that's a lot of money out there just sitting, waiting, right? So all 3 models can reach your same net profit. It can be done, but low end, lots of work, but you have lots of cash, steady cash. Mid-range, it's more balanced, and that's where a lot of people like to be. I have trouble sourcing that many mid-range items. I just do. When you're talking about $50 actual sale price, if I'm honest with myself, it's really hard for me. Higher end, fewer sales, but more money your money's tied up. And I see a lot of people go cash dry during that time. So here's like a little plot chart here. So here's our high end, and here's our profits for the number sold, right? So you can see that we're making about the same amount of money, pretty close, right? But here's your workload, is the red line is the workload. And so obviously high end, we are doing less work, right? Way down here. And we're selling less items. And our work is way up here for the low end items. And so people think that sounds amazing. Well, it is if you can get to that point.
Wait,
right?
Terry, question. You say the workload is represented there. Does that also include the work associated with sourcing those higher end items? Because it's going to
I don't
take
think
you
so.
it's going to take you a lot
No,
more work to
it's going
find
to take you
those.
a lot of time. Yep, it is. And you have a lot more risk, right? I get a $1, $2 brooch that I order on Whatnot, and it comes in, it's tarnished, and I got to throw it in the junk box for 15 bucks a pound or 12 bucks a pound. That's not near as risky as when we're buying $100 sets, right? So as much as I like the idea of doing those higher end things, in all practicality, I don't have enough hours in the day to source that way. And I told you, I really gave it a really good try there for a while. And I was just trying to hit that $50 actual, that was my sales, not shipping, not anything. And the cash flow is rough. The cash flow part was rough, and it's not something I'm willing to do. But I'm trying to do 25% of my store be mid-range or better. But to be honest with you guys, I do sell a lot of velocity, and I do get the home runs. I mean, I make over $100 sales every week. But my actual business and how my cash flow works is built around those $30 sales. Those 26 to $30 sales is really what my business is built on. And I would like to work less. I would like to not list 40 a day. I would like not, and the fly thinks I'm dead. Sorry. It's like, are you dead yet? Not yet. And it's hard and I don't love doing it, but it seems to be the sweet spot for velocity for me to make my money. And I'm not making 20, and those are all gross numbers, or net numbers, but I am netting right around 6,000, 5 to 6,000 a month is what my net profits are. So I'm not doing it for that 2,000 like that chart showed. I'm net profiting about the $2,000, or I mean, about the six, and sometimes I do more, but if we're planning on our worst month, I'm always able to take my pay, which is the $1,250 a week, and then I'm trying to profit an extra $1,000 a week on top of that. So I'm really trying to get to like 10,000 net profit a month, and I can do it. And on some months I do it, but I probably average $6,000 to $7,000 net profit a month. And when I say net profit, I'm actually talking minus all my business costs also. So I'm taking out my shipping costs, I'm taking out my storage costs, I'm taking out anything related to the business. And I can hit that $6,000 net a month, even on my worst month. And that's after all my business costs. So yes, I'm picking the harder road. It's a lot of work, but that's how I found it work for me. That doesn't mean other people don't make other models work, but I just can't find enough sourcing to do strictly the higher end. So that's my take on the sell-through rate. That's my take on, but also remember when I'm saying the sales price. So I don't say go out there and list a bunch of $22 brooches, because you're going to end up selling a lot of $15 ones, and they still got to be good, right? There's a lot of people that think they're $60, this is a $60 brooch. Yeah, it's a $25 brooch, right? So we have to be honest with ourselves. And a lot of jewelry sells on eBay for that $20 price point as far as what people are actually willing to pay. Same way with clothing, same thing. So yes, you can be the one picking out all the best stuff, and you can absolutely make a great business out of it. And so I'm not saying this is the end all be all. I'm just saying sell-through rate is important. And sell-through rate doesn't always mean that, like, I look it up on eBay and the sold's in whatever, because lots of my stuff's low sell-through rate, but I know I can push it through my store fast. So you got to know what your sell-through rate is for your store and your situation. So I can push a lot of this jewelry really fast in my store at certain sales points. You got to know what you can do fast in yours. But I would really recommend that we're not going for 15 bucks or 20 bucks. And I don't ever list something with the anticipation I'm going to get $20. It's just, it gets harder. The lower you go, the harder it is. So, and I do believe there's a plethora of stuff available to all of us. We can all source. You know, I can source 400 a week or 400 a week without too big of a problem in that mid range. The higher it goes, the harder it is, but we can all find that decent stuff in that $30 range. It's out there. I could source just on eBay and make that work. So all of you guys can too. So that's what I have, my hot take on sell-through rate. And I know it's probably not a popular opinion, especially since I'm saying the work harder is actually how I make it work, but it is what it is for me. And I'll always be willing to back it up with my numbers. So I do really hope that a lot of people that are out there talking about their numbers, talking about sell-through rate, talking about this, share their numbers, right? Let's see how you're, because I want to learn from those people. If you're making it work all with those, I want to see it. Like, that's great. I want to see it so I can learn how to do it. And I'm always willing to bear my numbers. So it would be really helpful if more people would be willing to do that. So thank you very much. Make sure you join us on Reseller Revenue Patreon. If you'd like to join our calls, we have one every Monday through Thursday in the morning. Then we have some extra calls like Larry's repair workshop. We have a jewelry call every Tuesday. We talk about clothing and we do shoes every Wednesday. So we have the extra calls that we also help track our numbers together. We'll take bookkeeping questions. We help each other, and it's just a lot of great information. Hey, it's Carrie with Reseller Revenue. Just wanted to come on and let you know if you'd like to see more of this, if you'd like to see more of my daily calls Monday through Thursday, and you'd like to participate, please go to Reseller Revenue Patreon group, and that's how you join our Facebook group also, is through that link. And you can join our morning calls, which we meet every day, Monday through Thursday at 9 a.m. Central Time. And then we have other calls afterwards, like we have a shoe call, a clothing call. We have a bunch of different kinds of calls. Also, the jewelry call that I do with Finds of Yesterday is on Tuesday mornings following the morning call. And also, you can get information on how to get personalized one-on-one coaching for an additional fee from me. We'll review your store. We'll go through different ways you can improve your listings. So I'd love to have you. Please check out Reseller Revenue on Patreon.